let this stir up a little bit. I should have grabbed me a straw. I have to use my finger. Oh, my brother Kel, my brother Kel. Woo. Yeah, there it is. All right, let me know when you see some action somewhere. You mute. Okay, you talking to somebody on mute? Is that doors closing?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right, well, I'm gonna go ahead and kick this joke off.
Oh, we live.
Oh. Just believe, yeah. Enough to music.
You're tuned in to Hits 107.3. No one knows hits like we do.
Joint so fresh, you gotta Shazam it. Loud and clear. It's Power 102 Jam.
It's all perspective. Representation comes from Detroit. Respecting you on those right around is what you chose. Perspective. It's just the point of view, the odds and the outcome. It's how you move. It's all perspective. Representation comes from Detroit. Respecting you on those right around is what you chose. Perspective. It's just the point of view, the odds and the outcome. Based on how you move. Based on how you move.
What's good with it, my brother Kel?
What's the word, my brother P?
Man, just living life, living somebody's life, right? I'm living somebody's dream in this thing.
Ho. Wait a minute now. Hold on. Pause. Now, we're not going to go 3, almost 4 years, and you try to change the whole intro.
Here we go. All right, hey.
Hold on now, people. Come on, the respect to 217. You see how he trying to maneuver from a little bit. Now, I'm gonna hold his feet to the fire on this one. Come on now.
Absolutely.
The eyes and outcome, how you move.
He said what? It's all about the outcome.
Based on how
you move. Not how
they move.
But how you move. Mo Fat. That's what you said on that Joker, man. Thanks
yes,
for
sir. Salute Mo Fat. What up, though, bro?
It's Perspective 217, and we back at it, man. I did change it up a little bit at the beginning. I was still kind of in my chill mode, right?
It was probably that Bears logo that you got in the background, man.
No, you know what? It's all the thing. I'm moving things around, man, so everything's just kind of discombobulated. But
I got you.
Yeah. So Kel, we back at it again, man. I'm gonna go ahead and get it started, man. How's it been?
Oh man, things moving, man. Today I'm repping my normal life, man. This for the normal life, the movie that's coming out, man. So we looking for that. I know I've been talking about it, but it's still in the works. Completing that venture. It's a movie, a soundtrack. It's an HBCU story. It's a real life story. Right around the 1991 racially tense era of the Rodney King beating and verdict. So go check us out. thenormallifemovie.com. You go check our website out, apparel, lookbook, script, and all that stuff is good deal. So we're looking for good dope producers and directors, man. So anybody, shoot them our way. Otherwise than that, man, it's business as usual. 10 toes down, brother. Let's keep this thing rolling.
Absolutely, man. I've been dealing with learning different things about the city that I live in, right? It's just been they have different rules out here, right? Where some of the ordinances and HOA rules that I had in the past, living in Illinois, are a little different out here in Oklahoma.
Yes, sir.
They want to know a lot of information about a lot of things that you're doing, right? When you're trying to make some changes, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, they want to know it all. Which, I mean, I understand. I get it when you're talking about, maintaining a certain culture in a neighborhood, certain decor. But we ain't trying to we ain't putting no dumpster back there and burning trash. You know what I mean? We upgrading the crib. So, but other than that, man, I mean, we're maintaining, man. I'm still going to school, man. I'm in this psychology class, which is whooping my tail. Cause boy, I mean, I know I use my brain, but I don't know how all the parts that's in it, right? I mean, that's a lot of words right there. But other than that, man, everything's good, man. So we got a interesting topic today, man, which is kind of focused on Illinois. And some laws that's going on in Illinois, which can impact the rest of the nation. You know what I mean? If it goes forth, which is this SAFE-T Act. What do you know about it right offhand? And then we kind of dive into it.
So, of course, being in the profession that we're in, this affect us tremendously in some form or fashion, because there's always some kind of change or modification or something of that nature. So this is one of those things. Governor Pritzker, as well as Congress, put together this bill here to kind of reform, amend some of the laws in Illinois pertaining to law enforcement. So this bill will actually go into effect. Is it January 1, 2023, or I don't know what the specific date is, but I know it's January, but I don't know the specific date of it. But Jan 2023, this thing goes into effect. And some of the information that's out there, I guess, is kind of what is making some people nervous. It's making some law enforcement officials nervous. And then it's also making the community nervous. So that's kind of what we're going to talk about today.
Absolutely. So one of the things, I'm glad you kind of brought that up about the law enforcement aspect. So one aspect of it that people are kind of, looking at, they want to, require for officers to give aid after use of force.
Mm-hmm.
That's happening anyway. It should be happening anyway, I should say,
Yeah.
right? I mean, because that was how I was trained.
Right. Me as well.
I know that's how you were trained. I can't say it's nationwide because I haven't worked for every department.
Mm-hmm.
But I was trained like that through both the departments that I worked for in Kansas and in Illinois. So that's one of the things that really shouldn't be a big deal.
But in this profession, bro, how it goes. It usually takes some circumstance or instance,
right,
that's either global or some kind of mass media coverage where that doesn't occur. Because of course, if your training is covering that, because hey, I know when we do trainings whether it's firearms or whatever, when it comes to some kind of injury or some potential of bodily harm or severe injury or something, that's a component of our training. Like, hey, this happens to an officer, or this happens to a civilian, or this happens to a bad guy. These are the tiers kind of how we're going to address the situation when it comes to rendering aid. So yes, it is part of, it should be normal practice for most departments over the nation. Unfortunately, because there's so many departments out here, police departments, that they're not all uniform. You know, I mean, you would think they would all be universal, but some of them kind of walk to their own beat. So this particular bill is specific to Illinois, and we're talking about from the top of Illinois to the bottom of Illinois. So you know, you got the major metropolitan cities to the most rural part of Illinois. So
down to Brookport, Illinois.
Correct. So you got everything in between. So you know there probably have been situations that have arisen that made them want to look into this a little bit more deeper.
One of the things I was looking at was the ban the destruction of police misconduct records. Currently, under both departments that I work for, you know, there's only, depending on, I mean, what you consider misconduct, right? If it's something that is severe, you probably won't be at the job, right? You know what I mean? But like, for instance, if you pull somebody over and write them the wrong ticket, right? You know what I mean? That could be considered misconduct, right? Because you felt like they were under this said violation and it wasn't. You end up getting written up for it, and you know, it sticks on your record for 2 years, you know, depending on the department you're at. That, I mean, that's like saying that you're punished for the rest of your life for making a mistake, right? You know what I mean? If it took somebody's life, it's a different situation.
Correct.
Right? If it caused great bodily harm, it's a different situation.
Correct.
But if it's like just a violation, which would be considered misconduct, and you get written up for it, I mean, I'm not really for that just sitting on your record for the rest of your career, because that stops you from any promotions. You know what I mean? I'm not the same person I was yesterday.
Right.
Right. So 2 years ago, I'm for sure I wasn't the same person I am right now. I don't really agree with that part. What's your view on that? Go ahead.
So it seems like today, man, we're gonna be doing a good cop, bad cop analogy.
Yeah, go ahead.
So no, I agree with you, bro. Like there are certain situations that need to be documented, you know, for official misconduct. You know, hey, you know, if you write a wrong ticket to somebody that's you know, that's committing a traffic violation. Let's say you write, hey, failed to stop at an electric signal, right? But it was really, hey, you forgot to fail yielding turning right. Okay. Right. So not a big discrepancy, but at the same time, I mean, it's that moving violation is the same when it comes to a fine. So do you need to be really written up for that? That could probably be a verbal counseling, like, hey, listen, you know, just so you know, man, this is what you need. This is what you need to be writing this ticket for because of the circumstances. So that could be more of a verbal situation. Now, if an officer or that person finds themselves in situations where they're responding to traffic accidents, right, and they are being belligerent to the drivers, right? Pull up on the scene. First thing is like, you know, damn, you know, you can't drive. Why you like just going off the rails because they got called to an accident. It's hot outside. You know, people are injured. They really don't have the patience for them, and so you know he or she is just railing off at the mouth at the actual drivers, right? So because of his conduct, his behavior, yes, that, you know, if this is something that's consistent, that is definitely misconduct. Like you can't be out as a public official and, you know, you just jabbing out on people because you're doing your job and you got called there. So absolutely. So there are levels to it. There, you know, some things should be just like handled, you know, in the department. As far as like a verbal level, but then there are also the stuff that needs to be documented because of, you know, the content. Now, what my interpretation is, or what my perspective is, this is because we've had so many major media incidents where officers have repeatedly done the same thing over and over and over and over again. And although there was maybe a complaint filed, or there was some kind of reprimand or something like that, there was really no repercussion from that. So they're like, well, hey, if he did this to this person, then why was he able to do this 4 more times until it got to the point where it was severe? So I understand where they're saying that there needs to be more accountability for officers when it comes to misconduct, because again, if it's a traffic infraction and they missed what the actual infraction is, instead of it being an electric signal, it's the right term. I can understand that can be a verbal counsel. But if it's hey, you show up to the scene, you're belligerent to the public, or hey, you get there, you're basically trying to abuse your power. Those things need to be documented, because that's going to be a paper trail for that officer's policing style and behavior.
So document it and stay on their permanent record forever. Okay.
To an extent of whatever the misconduct is. Again, if it's just like missing that actual infraction, I don't think that should be on your record for the rest of your career, because again, that will hinder you from promoting or moving up or getting to specialized units, because of the fact that, hey man, it was dark outside. I know it when I came there. I thought I seen you. There was multiple vehicles there. I seen one vehicle turn. I seen one. So so that is a little bit easier to kind of that's easier to kind of articulate than it is for somebody who's going there and just slapping somebody when they come on scene, like, yo, what's going on? That part, so yeah. So
yeah, yes, sir. So one of the things, I got several calls about this next part, right? The police part kind of goes on and on and on and on, but we can get into that a little later. This is questions that I had that I was being asked, which kind of prompted the subject of this show. Abolished cash bail. That part was interesting, right? Because when I first heard it, I heard it from one of my sons, right? And he was asking me, like, did you hear this, right? And me not being in Illinois, I keep up with stuff that I hear from y'all. You all, like the ones that I have contact with, right. But I don't keep up with like things that don't really affect me too much anymore.
Right.
I've been gone over 2 years now, and it's just
already
things start to fade. Right. The love for my people don't fade, but the interest in certain things fade. When I was getting the calls about it, they was like, so they ain't gonna arrest nobody for certain crimes that they would normally get a bail for, like let's say trespassing, or some of the things that was on the list were aggravated DUI and kidnapping and things like that. And I was like, nah, that don't make sense, right? Because some of those things you don't necessarily, you wouldn't get a bail right off anyway, right? You kidnap somebody, they ain't giving you no bail, right? If they do give you a bail, it's going to be a astronomical bail, right?
Yeah.
It's going to be a very, very high bail, which leads into why they're talking about this abolishing cash bail. I want to talk about whether you and I think that is leading in the right direction, and then talk about why the pros and the cons, right? So I believe that the purpose behind the abolishing the cash bail is heading in the right direction. The reason I say this is because, like, let's say you get arrested for criminal damage. I get arrested for criminal damage, except I have a revolving $2 million, bank account, and you have a revolving $30 bank account.
Let's do this. Let's add this because when you say criminal damage, people could say, "Oh, well, man." So we'll say criminal damage over a 300. We'll say over 500 value. That's more or less a
felony
misdemeanor, correct,
right?
or felony amount, so people can kind of get a better understanding. So yeah, go ahead.
Anything high that would require you to post bond, not just
Correct.
NOR, which is getting released on your own recognizance. If I have this revolving the resources,
Mhm.
they set a $2,000 bond. Let's say a $20,000 bond, right? 10% applies.
Right.
You're gonna have to pay $2,000 plus whatever the county fee is,
Mhm.
and
We,
I'm gonna have that
we
2,000.
we can even drop it to 2,000. Let's do that. Drop it to 2,000, right?
So it's 2,000, 10% apply.
10% of that.
$200,
200
right?
bucks.
You have a revolving $30 access to $30.
Mhm.
I have, access to 200,000,
Right.
right? You know what I mean? Somewhere. I'm gonna easily be able to bond out, within an hour.
Correct.
You know what I mean? You're not going to be able to bond out without somebody providing this extra money because you
Yeah.
don't have it.
Collateral or something. Yeah.
So I understand the balancing of people not being punished just because they're economically impoverished,
Mhm.
right? I get that part, and I think that's part of why it's heading in the right direction. Now, some of the charges that were mentioned, we'd have to get into when we talk about some of the pros and cons, right?
Mhm.
So are you under the same opinion, or do you have a different opinion about if it's heading in the right direction
um, I'm going to say right now, I'm going to hold my full commitment to answering that question, because what I know is this: from the historic foundation of all this, right? The numbers and the stats will tell you that more than likely, Black and brown people have been the people who pretty much fall up under this cash bail, where their freedom is hindered or stopped because they don't have that cash flow, like you were talking about earlier, right? Where they don't have the necessary funding, resources, collateral to be able to post bond on a lot of times on these small crimes where couple $100, man, they can get out until they have a court date or something. So them trying to abolish that, I'm in agreement with that, because like you said, it was trying to even this thing out so that people don't sit in jail for 2 months because they can't afford $200. I'm absolutely for that, because if you have a petty crime, right, where you criminal damage that's under $500, $300, you know what I'm saying? You shouldn't have to sit there for weeks in order for you to try to scrape up some money, a couple $100 plus the processing fee in order to get out. I get it. But if you are now doing something more where, aggravated assault, aggravated battery, something that's a little more serious, or a lot more serious, and there needs to be a cooling down moment so that, one, prosecution can get their things lined up in order, judge can kind of view the file, and then there can be a determination, so that if you've done something that's worthwhile for a judge to see, then there should be enough time for all parts to kind of get things together to come up and say, okay, all right, so here's what we're going to do moving forward. So I believe I'm being optimistic that it hopefully it leads that way, where it's a balancing, kind of making things equal.
Right.
But I'm curious to see kind of how they're going to do it when we're talking about the more major crimes, which I think you're going to get ready to go into now.
Right. So I'm in 100% agreement about that, because we can't, because it hasn't actually been fully fleshed out yet.
Mm-hmm.
Because it passed back in January 22nd, I believe, of 21.
Mm-hmm.
Right, is when it passed. But
right.
Just like the concealed carry law, when it was passed, it wasn't fully flushed out. Right,
Correct.
You know what I mean? The law still had to be tailored and put into place, and all the ins and outs
Mm-hmm.
had to be worked out. This is the same thing with this. What I'm finding when I read and do some research, certain crimes like aggravated battery or kidnapping or arson or things like that, right? The judge is still going to be able to set no bail, just like they do now, right?
Yeah.
They can. I think it'll be more people that actually get just no bail instead of a $2 million bail or a $500,000 bail for whatever charge they would have got. It would be more just no bails, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The smaller. I think it's going to be like a if you pass this threshold, whatever this threshold is, then you fall into the no bail.
Right.
Which meaning that you're not getting out, right? Until you see the judge and go to court.
Right.
If you fall below this threshold, then you get out on your own recognizance.
Right.
Right. Maybe with some type of provisions. Just kind of like the domestic violence situation, right? In Illinois, you have the 72-hour no contact, right? Part of you being released after you spend the night in jail.
The no contact for 72 hours. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. You know what I mean? With that, either that place or that person.
Right.
Whether male or female, it doesn't matter. Right. So I think it would be something like that. But again, I'm saying I'm not the one who's kind of writing it. We're just reading it and trying to give you our perspective, audience, of what we're understanding from.
Right. Yeah, I mean it's with these bills, man, because when all this was was being brought to the table, we were in the middle of COVID, and so at that time we were dealing with with the George Floyd killing. And so there was, it was the defund the police, reform the police, abolish the police. It was that conversation. So a lot of this legislator conversation had started as far as, trying to either reform or defund the police. And so, like you said, this came out like almost 2 years ago, about a year or so ago.
About a year and what month is this? A year and 9 months ago.
Yep. So pretty close to almost 2 years. And so if anybody follows politics, they know that anytime that they say something or they vote on something, that doesn't mean it goes into effect immediately. And that's kind of what happened with this bill. It was introduced. It was from my understanding, I believe it kind of just barely kind of got through in the last minute of the midnight hour.
Right.
So it kind of squeaked through, but there's been a lot of provisions to it. There's been a lot of modifications because, like Pete said earlier, things are not as heightened as it was almost 2 years ago. And so there's been a lot of conversations on both sides, law enforcement, civilians, politicians. And so, at the end of the day, hopefully this comes out to be reasonable for everyone. And it's not a situation where, they're just saying, hey, because you went out and, you bopped somebody over the head or pistol whipped somebody, in the head with a gun and took their car, that all of a sudden now you get police get there, they arrest you, and all of a sudden you get to the jail and they be like, oh, guess what? No bail. Or you get bail. How about that? So it's like,
so depending on like I think it's also going to depend on, forgive the term, your strikes, right? How many times you had this type of encounter with law enforcement, right? Like let's say it is your third DUI,
right?
Within the past 17 months. Right? You just don't learn, right? You know what I mean? You get one of them that you just
we've seen it, bro. This
right?
is like
this
is
don't
real
care.
situations. Like, yeah.
And in that situation, it's like that would make it an aggravated DUI in Illinois because it's your third DUI, or it could be an aggravated DUI before your third if somebody was injured in the process of your DUI incident, right?
Mhm.
So I think under those circumstances, again, I'm not the judge,
Yeah.
but that would be one of them where you kind of cross that threshold because you don't learn. You're gonna go back out and you're gonna do it again, right? You're gonna have 4
Yeah.
in 20 months.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And one of the things that somebody asked that I was discussing with somebody who called, I said, but how do you, from the public's perspective, is getting caught with 7 pounds of marijuana?
Mhm.
Is that something that you should stay in jail for?
Are you talking about now or are you talking about then?
Well, I'm talking about now. I'm talking about like right now. Like I
Mhm.
know if this came up in 21, but currently right now you're in Illinois.
Mhm.
You get caught with 7 pounds of marijuana.
Mhm.
Um, you got a little money. Traditionally, right now, you would get a bond. It would be a high bond,
Mhm.
but you'd get a bond. I asked them, does that 7 pounds of marijuana, because the person was saying, well, I don't want these people out. They're out. If they're supposed to be locked up, if they don't have the money, they just don't have the money. They need to stay in there. I said, but does that 7 pounds, do they need to stay in jail? And
Right.
then they was like, well, no. I said, but why? They committed a crime. You know what I mean?
Right.
7 pounds of weed is not, you know what I mean? You ain't just going to smoke 7 pounds of weed. If you smoke 7 pounds of weed, you are a hype. Like you pookie. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
It didn't turn into something else.
Yeah.
When you talk about that, and then you talk about, let's say, somebody stole a car.
Mhm.
Nobody got hurt, but they stole a car. Should they stay in jail until through court and not get a bond? I mean, what's the threshold, right? You know what I mean? What from the public's eye, what was their view of justice? Like what would make it okay?
Mhm.
And it went back and forth. It was like, oh well, yeah, no, I don't think they should stay in jail. Then I was like, well, yeah, I think they should stay in jail, right? Just
Yeah.
because yes, marijuana is legal in Illinois recreationally,
Right.
if you buy it from the proper place and
Correct.
only have so much of it.
Correct.
7 pounds that you didn't buy from the proper place
Mhm.
is still illegal. So marijuana is not necessarily legal; it's recreationally legal, kind of like alcohol.
Yeah, I guess if I had to kind of sum things up, I guess I'm glad that I'm on this level
Hmm.
of the judicial system, or the criminal justice side of it, because um, district attorneys, prosecutors, state's attorneys, like they have to decipher through that stuff, man. Kind of what what were the aggravating or the mitigating circumstances, because they look at this stuff like through and through, because you break the law, right? Because you break the law, and depending on what that law is,
Hmm.
they have to basically determine, is this law that you broke, is this to the level where you need to sit down, you
Hmm.
know, sit down for an extended amount of time. And the mitigating factors are, okay, so when this person broke that crime, did this person put anybody's life in jeopardy? Was there any kind of criminal damage? Was there any kind of injuries? What all resources were called in order to handle or resolve it? So there's a lot of things that they deal with, man, and um, it really kind of comes down to, we say this word all the time, bro. Priority. Is it priority 1? Is it priority 2? Priority 3? Priority 4? So I'm hoping, um, just kind of being open minded, that with this, abolishing this cash bail, like you said, are they going to have a threshold to say, hey, listen, okay, this person stole a car, let's say from a dealership. It's late night. There's no one around. It was one car. They drove the car off the lot of the dealer lot. It was found 2 days later behind an apartment complex, right? No real threat to anybody. Now, 18-year-old, 19-year-old kid. I say kid because, of course, that's a young adult, but
absolutely
they're considered to be adults at that time. But an 18-year-old young adult or adult at that time does that. Is that grounds for them to sit down for 20 years because they did that? No.
I don't think so, right?
No, I don't think so. Now,
not on that, not with that alone.
Not with that alone.
Right.
Now, example 2. Same person, 18, 19 years old, steals a car from the mall, right? Friday evening, there's, the mall is packed, right? And so this person comes out, Jimmy's the door and the windows during, 7 o'clock at night. There's people parking and getting out. And when this person hops in and hot wires a car, he or she skirts off, almost hits two families they're walking in the parking lot. They're running stop signs. Police are called. There's a car chase, a vehicle chase. They run over. They run over some people's mailboxes. They wind up shooting at the police. So, it's a party now.
Right.
They catch the person, they detain them, take them to jail. Now, same person, same age, same circumstance, same crime, but it's mitigations are those things that I mentioned. Now, does that person need to sit in jail for 20 years?
I think they would need to sit in jail from how you describe that, at least from my perspective, that they would need to sit in jail until they go through the court process.
Correct, because it is a process.
Right.
No matter what, it is a process.
Not 20 years, maybe.
No, not 20 years.
20 years, right? But at least go through. I would prefer if I was the one making the decision, and a lot of people probably thank God that I'm not the one making the decision. But that situation, you sit there until your court date, right? And then a determination will be made after your court date.
Right.
In the first situation, what would be the, it's going to be interesting to see what would be if they don't have bail. You know what I mean? If there's no cash bail for them, they just kind of get out on their own recognizance.
Right.
What would be the stipulations for them to tell them, okay, don't go steal another car, right? You still got to be in court on this date.
In court, absolutely.
If you choose to flee, because a lot of times they give high bails because they say they're a danger to the society or they're a flight risk, right? For what I read, if the judge deems that, he just gives them. There's no bail, like he holds them, right? That he or she, that judge can hold that person.
So the judge believes that this person is a flight risk, no bail.
There's no bail. You don't get out, right? You're just there through the court process.
Gotcha.
But if they don't deem you as a flight risk and they don't deem you as a harm to society, kind of like what you were saying earlier, then they would fall closer to that, getting out without having to post bail.
Right.
Right. And it's kind of when I say no bail, like Super said down at the bottom here, Soup said that the punishment should fit the crime equally across the board. Yes, and kinda. Right. You know what I mean? I wish I could say yes wholeheartedly, but the punishment sometimes is based on parameters that occurred prior to said incident. Right. And it shouldn't be based on how much money you have. It is if that's what you're saying, Sue, then I agree with you 100%. If you're saying that just because somebody get caught for somebody break a window, they should get the same as, you know, if they're a third time, fourth time offender as a first time offender, I don't agree with that part. You know, because the crime still occurred. It's just there was baggage that came with it. You know, that person weighs more, right? You know what I mean? They came to the table with more tomatoes that were rotten, right?
And maybe Soup, if he's going to chime back in here, maybe he's talking about, if kind of like I was saying earlier, if you have two people that commit the same crime, everything is exact, right?
Right.
The manner, the money, the circumstances, the resolution, right? It should be equal. It should be equal punishment. It shouldn't be two, you know, this person because of this person of that. It should be, okay, you did the crime, you did the crime. It's identical. You both are going to get boom, boom, boom. You know, even though there are two separate cases, but
yeah, no, I'm with it. It's just sometimes what I was saying was that sometimes there's baggage, right? You know, and you're not going to get the same response. That's like, all right, me if you have a young person that runs through the mud and then comes and tracks it all through your nice white carpet. Absolutely. So then the first time you're gonna get a little more lenience, right? You're gonna be like, okay, look, you can't do that, right? You know what I mean? I'm gonna be upset, but you can't do that. But if you do it 3 more times, that fourth time that you did it, the reaction ain't gonna be the same.
No, I figured that's what he's talking about, though. So that's
he meant equal regardless of race. You know, right. Absolutely, and it should be. One of the things I kind of want to dive into that this leads to, Kel, is, at least from my perspective, is okay. You abolish the cash bail, it still doesn't make it equal, because the person who has more resources has access to better representation. Better representation leads to smarter, more wittier, you know, more connections, more tricks in the bag.
Yeah.
To find that loophole. Right. You know, so it's still. No, I ain't drinking milk. Yeah, he said soup silly. It's lemonade. That part is still not going to be fair, right? But the beginning part, at least the baseline, would be on a more equal playing ground.
Yeah.
From my perspective, which is why I think it's leading in the right direction.
No, I agree. I mean, you know, you could take that aspect away of the process, but there are still tiers to it. You know, in the event that you have to go and see a judge, right? Okay, and your case is picked up by the state, right? And so prosecutors are going to basically, you basically been charged. The prosecution is trying to convict you of that charge, right? And so if you have the necessary means, then guess what? You can go get Johnny Cochran's law firm to come in there and be your defense, right? Where you have a whole team of like 8 lawyers or 8 attorneys on your side saying that, hey, I didn't run that stop sign, compared to the majority come in and it's public defender number 1,000, right? No shots at the public defenders. You know, I know they're overworked, underpaid. I get it. There's a lot of great ones. I'm not taking any shot here. Perspective 217. We're not doing that. We're just saying, though, of course, you would get better representation from those top tier attorneys when it comes to being able to articulate and knowing the laws in and out and having those relationships, or at least the knowledge of being in the court with that judge, kind of knowing what they specifically like, as far as when they're, you're addressing, or presenting your case. So that stuff helps. That stuff helps. So you're right that it just because you get rid of the cash bail doesn't mean that just makes everything equal, because again, there's tiers to this. And then when you get to those tiers, a lot of it still comes down to resources, money, and things of that nature.
So it dived into a lot of. I mean, I didn't realize how deep this goes. It goes into how the corrections situation goes. Like, it alters the mandatory supervised release terms, right? So it would either decrease or increase based on the actual crime. It also amends the definition of habitual criminal and first degree murder charges. Now, I haven't dug enough into that to know what the amendments were, but it's touching all of these different things that affect more minorities than others. You know what I mean? It's I understand. I was looking at it early, like I looked at it first. I tried to look at it first, at least from a civilian's eye. It was a little tough, but I went back because I kept coming back with the but you know what I mean? What if this happens, right? I kept coming with that. I was playing devil's advocate with myself when I was going through it. I can see the scary part for our, more law-abiding citizens. Because the people who call me are law-abiding citizens, right? They were scared because it's a scary. The clickbait out there is the purge was just made legal in Illinois.
Yeah,
that was clickbait. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Saying that people can get away with murder, right? There's
Yeah.
no bail, right? You can get second degree murder or burn somebody's house down with a minute or right. It was the things that were listed on there were scarier things, right? Arson, kidnapping. The trespass was a smaller one, and we kind of touched on the trespass a little bit, where if somebody trespass and they get out and they fail to go to court, right? They flee. I asked that person who called me. I said, did you really lose? Because they're not trespassing on your land no more. They're gone, right? If they come back, then they got a warrant and they're probably going to go to jail and then not have a bond,
Right.
right? It's going to be interesting, to say the least. And I think we're going to have probably a few more shows about this throughout the next year, year and a half or so, as it gets fleshed out a little bit more, just because we're going to have more information.
Agreed. And some of the rumblings that I've been hearing, is that this bill that's coming to effect is going to make it harder on correction officers, police officers, law enforcement officials, because it always seems like there's bills or laws or policies that are coming down that's always trying to keep departments in the straight and narrow. And one thing that law enforcement officials don't like is change. And when change happens, it's always very slow. And so the rumbling is that, especially in Illinois, because this is where this is kind of the this is kind of the kickoff to this whole reform. So depending on how this rolls in Illinois, could very well be an indicator of how this thing is going to roll out on the East Coast and the West Coast and South. So a lot of, I wouldn't say a lot of officials, but there's been a great many who are saying that, hey, listen, when this thing comes down, man, it's going to probably be a first time that people are going to kind of question whether they need to proceed as a law enforcement official because they feel that, the immunity portion of it. I read a little bit as far as um, that kind of immunity blanket of working in that capacity as a law enforcement official, and something happens where you have to use deadly force.
Oh,
Um,
talk about that. 'Cause I was-
yeah, and so you have to, because you are acting as a an authoritative figure, and you might unfortunately have to take the life of someone. That immunity blanket, as far as you're basically trying to stop this. You're trying to prevent this person from fleeing because they may very well go out and harm or kill someone else, or even commit an additional forcible felony. That this language right now is kind of unclear.
Yes.
So so law enforcement officials are like, I don't know if I want to get myself jammed up in that, because if that whole immunity blanket is being kind of lifted, you're going out to do your job, and you find yourself being complained on, just for somebody who just don't like the police. I mean, just because you show up somewhere, you get a call there, and somebody have words with you, you might not say anything, and that's they file a complaint on you, and now that has to go to an actual board, a citizen board, and then your department board for that complaint coming through. And not saying that it's not needed, because there are instances where it needs to be reviewed internally. But if we're now saying that, that blanket of immunity is kind of being lifted, then there are rumblings, man, where people are like, hey, I don't know if I want to walk down that that dark alley, man, and find out what's around the corner. So
I don't necessarily, and I never did like the term immunity, because we were never, even when I was in law, immune, right? To anything, right? Because depending on the circumstance, there was still prosecution that could be put forth. It just didn't. The public didn't see it much, right? What I mean? It was a lot of people that were using the "I'm scared, I was scared"
for my life.
To their advantage when they were blatant with their actions, right? And those people deserve to be punished. But a situation I talked about with the same person, I said, what it would, I'm so glad I'm not in that profession right now, because if I didn't have a protection of being able to err on trying to protect somebody and save their life, if somebody's trying to harm them right then and there, I'm gonna be hesitant to take action against that person, because even let's say they just get a bruise.
Yeah, you save a life, right?
I save a life, but they get a bruise. Then now they can sue me, and I don't have any protections, because those protections have been taken away.
Correct.
Like for me being able to act as the authoritarian in that moment. Not saying walking around beating my chest, I'm the police. I'm talking about trying to assist somebody when their life is in danger.
Yeah, acting in good faith of your
faith rule, right?
Correct.
What I mean? That's the protection I'm talking about. Well, we got 3 minutes. One of the things that I read on here is it allows the Attorney General to investigate, initiate civil lawsuits, and enforce settlement against police agencies that have a pattern of depriving individuals of their rights. Right? So at least that last part, the first part was like, okay, dang. But then that last part, you have to have a pattern. Now, what is considered a pattern, though?
That part.
And if you did it, Johnny did it, and Jane did it, and then I do something similar, is that a pattern? Now, am I the one that's getting fired on? Or, you know what I mean? How does that work?
Right.
If I cut somebody out, if I use an arm bar and they end up with a bruise on their cheek, It happens. And am I the one being investigated and by the attorney general? It's just so many unknowns, man.
Correct. Because it's vague still. You know what I'm saying? It talks on some specifics, but the majority of the bill is still kind of vague in general. And so unless you have case law, because usually that's how things are kind of structured or referenced. If there's case law that's saying, hey, we know this is the resolution because this happened back in whatever case, blanks versus state, whatever state that is versus this person, there's case law to review it. But now there's not going to be any case law. This is kind of a new beginning, so to speak. Right. So I don't know how that's going to go, bro.
So we're gonna have to. I mean, it's gonna take plenty of episodes to kind of get through this and dive deep into it. We just kind of wanted to give an overview to our listeners of our perspective of what stood out to us. Soup, this is why we do live, right? So we can interact with our listeners.
Yes.
And
the question is yes.
Have I ever seen some foul play from officers? The answer is yes. Now, foul versus illegal.
Seen that too.
It kind of depends, right? I mean, I guess yes. The answer would be yes too, right? Yes. The answer, right? I mean, I don't know how it's put out, right?
And understand there is a system there's a system in place to govern officers in behavior like that. It's called IA. You see what I'm saying? So yes, there's a watchdog for behavior and activity like that. But of course, it goes to say that stuff like that has to be reported in order for them to take action. So,
right.
But yeah.
Now, saying that, Soup, I want to be clear to all of our listeners. I've never stood by and watched somebody violate somebody's rights.
Oh, absolutely not.
And because I don't know what you mean when you say foul play.
Right.
I've seen some butthole officers. I've worked with some butthole officers in the past, and I consider that foul. But abusing somebody's rights, I've never stood by and watched that happen.
Absolutely
I
not.
wouldn't allow it to happen. When I was in it, but Kale, man, this one I kind of picked a rough one for us for our first time back because we could get about 3-4 hours on this one, right?
Easily.
So listeners, hey, share, like, repeat. Go ahead and check us out on YouTube, on LinkedIn, on Facebook. We got a TikTok that we still building. Instagram. Yep. Follow us. Also, check out that Normal Life, thenormallifemovie.com. It's down below. Check it out. www.thenormallifemovie.com. Common spelling. I wanted to make sure it was common spelling before I said common spelling.
Alabama A&M, stand up.
Yes, sir. Yeah. Hey, so Kale, again, man, great episode, man. Great information out to our people, man. Let's continue this. Let's try to get back on track. And this is Perspective 2. And we